All right. Ladies and gentlemen, step right up. Welcome to another episode of the Goonery. Got a real special guest for you today. Her name is Tara Jean O'Brien.
That's me.
Hey.
I'm also very special. So you introduced me correctly. What a delight.
What makes you special?
I mean, look at this background. It's like the inside of my brain. It's just a big mess. I don't know. I don't know what makes me special other than everything.
Okay. Right on.
That's a great way to start, I'm sure.
Yeah. We had no idea how we were going to start.
There it is.
But with that being said, I think you followed me on Twitter. You found the Goonery or something, and I looked at your profile and I saw like Second City, host of a podcast, former writer for The Onion. So kind of one of the people we love to get on the Goonery and just chat with comedy.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
I'm happy to drink and talk.
We're drinking, not so much talking quite yet. Trying to.
Right. Here we go. We're great. It's going to be great.
What flavor truly is that?
It's a refreshing lemon. It's a refreshing lemon hard seltzer. Sorry, it's a hint. It's got a hint of lemon. I would say it's lemon forward if I were to rename it.
Okay.
But that's just me. So yes.
I've got a beautiful Ranier. Not sure about product placement yet.
That's that. We had some of that. My husband and I, a few years ago, we went, as many do, on an Alaskan cruise with my in-laws.
Ooh.
And we stopped, it's out of Seattle. It's a very common thing for people to do. So we had never been to Seattle, so we went for a few extra days beforehand. We had a great time. Seattle is a beautiful city and has lots of great alcoholic beverages.
A lot of nose beers out here. What time of the year did you come out?
In May. It was like late. I think it was like the first sailing of the year or something.
Okay.
Yeah,
the weather gets pretty good between like May and September.
It was beautiful.
Well, they say like the summer actually doesn't start till after July 5th. But some years that's true, some years it's not. Who knows with global warming? It's all going to change.
Anything?
Yeah.
Who knows about anything right now? Like,
Seriously.
will there be weather after this? Are we going to experience anything besides the inside of our like places of residence? I don't know.
Well, that is the elephant in the room. What's your take on the whole coronavirus quarantine?
I mean, obviously, I live in California, I live in LA, and we were pretty aggressive about it right off the top. And, it's funny because I had a production job that I was supposed to start on the 16th of March. And so which was a Wednesday, and that Monday, I like emailed the line producer. I was like, "Hey, so are we really gonna do this job?" And they're like, "Yes, absolutely." Blah 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 blah. And I was like, "Okay." And so Tuesday at 4:30, I was like, "Hey, so but really?" And 30 minutes later, they sent an email. They're like, "We're not gonna do it. We'll email you when it's back on." And I was like, "Okay." So it was just like this weird period of a few days where I think we were all in denial of like, "Hold on, wait, what?" I'm sorry. You want everybody in LA to stay home? Everybody? Like, my brother lives in San Francisco, and so he had it like the week before, and that was like, we were calling him. I was like, this is crazy. Can you imagine living in San Francisco right now?
Oh.
And then cut to like, oh, just kidding. We're all in lockdown. So.
Yeah, not to get political or anything, but I think Governor Inslee in Seattle was following closely at hand with like what California was doing.
Yeah.
And we seem to be the two states that really locked everyone down and got on that bandwagon pretty quickly.
I mean, you guys have the honor of being the epicenter. Is that do you guys have that in every window? Yes, COVID started here. Established 2020.
Got a few more text messages than I'm used to getting.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, for me personally, and this is just for me, I'm a comedian, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, but I also work in TV and film production. So I also do production managing, location managing. And so as far as production managing, location managing, that is all off. Hollywood is shut down because to make any show, you have to have, 100 people in a room all looking at this one thing and breathing on each other. So, you know, any content will not really be made for the foreseeable future. But
I know.
So it's like, it's, you know, what people don't realize is like, is there's going to be a limit, like say August, September, where like all the new stuff is like, dude, it's out. Like, it's out. So you better get used to some reruns or some terrible reality shows, because that's what we got. That's what we got left.
I know. Being a big sports fan, for one, like
Oh,
that was the first thing they did away with. That's been hard to.
well, do you think the NFL is gonna
No,
be? You don't
absolutely
think
not.
so?
No.
Really?
And if they do, it'll get shut down immediately with like the second wave.
You don't think they're gonna try to do the thing with like nobody in the stands in the stadiums?
Ugh.
Like play the game? Like it would, to me, that'd be weird.
Yeah, that would be a little weird. I think they tried to do that with wrestling, and it's just super awkward. So I don't.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different with like the NFL, but I don't know. I don't think. I feel like just 2020's canceled, and like let's not get our hopes up.
It kind of feels like that, you know.
Yeah.
My husband and I watched a ton of football. I'm more a college football fan, but
Who's your teams?
San Francisco 49ers, thank you so much. And I went to USC, so I'm a Trojan. So let's just, you know what? Everybody who loves me now hates me. So that's fine.
Hey,
that's
we got Pete Carroll up here in Seattle.
Yeah, I'm aware that you have Pete Carroll up in Seattle. Super aware.
He fled.
Yeah.
He fled up north.
Yeah, he fled with his pants on fire. So.
Yeah. Yep. I heard a weird. Because right, the Super Bowl was kind of going on, and coronavirus was in the background, and
yeah, there's rumors that it might be there. I mean, it's all.
And like, if San Francisco would have won, like the Super Bowl parade would have been a huge like spreading.
That's a whole different kind of pride parade for them. It's
yeah.
Like, whoa. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's weird in LA. Very specifically, I mean, it's almost mean, because you look every morning and the traffic, like the 405 is green, and you're like, how? And
yeah, that's a weird one too, right? Because I've seen that image too, where everyone's like, oh, the 405 is always packed.
It's kind of eerie. It's kind of bizarre. But I will say, as I was gonna say, personally, so you know, my physical, like a lot of what I do, you know, in a room with other people is shut down. But as an actor and a writer, this has actually kind of been an amazing opportunity to focus on a lot of the creative projects that have always been like, you know, the thing you get to when you have time. So now I'm doing these things. And so it's...
What's on the docket?
I mean, a few things. So I was finishing a feature script that I was writing, and I'm now on draft 4 of that. I have people reading it, so that's been great. I had a book idea that I had worked on back in 2012, and I was like, you know what I should do? I should probably, it's like a humor book. I mean, surprising. But I found a local artist friend who's doing some illustrations for it, so we're working on that, which is great. And I'm very fortunate. I often get called to do sketches on Conan O'Brien, which is very, very. It's kind of, listen. I feel very fortunate whenever they call me. It's very lovely, and they texted me on this past Friday, and they're like, "Can you do a one-on-one with Conan on Monday? We'll send you everything." Da 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 da. So I shot that on Monday, just like this, except you were Conan O'Brien. Oh, okay. That was pretty freaking cool.
Okay. It would have had a little more hair, a little more orange.
Yeah. But it's about the same.
I had to go full on just apocalypse mode, and I chopped the hair off.
Oh, yeah? How long was your hair?
I mean, not too long. Maybe like the guy behind me that's staring at me, like that length. But
did you razor it? You took a razor?
No, just a one, like with the shears, whatever you call that.
Yeah.
But more interesting than that, what are we looking out for on the Conan O'Brien coming up?
Oh, so the thing with late night television the very little experience I've had with the little snippet is they air things when they want to air them. So I don't, I basically show up. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Generally they'll give you an idea of like a character or the idea of the sketch, and then you go and you do it, and then you leave and you're like, okay, that was amazing. So I'll say it's involving like Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, that sort of, because like, Joe Biden is now so it's about Joe Biden being the presidential nominee. So you should look out for it. Hopefully, I would assume it's going to be on this week because it is pretty topical. So,
does it feature you, or are you the writer behind it?
No, it features me. I'm an actor in it. So
okay.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm excited.
That's awesome.
That show is very, very sweet and very cool. The writers who are on that show are amazing, and I feel very, very honored whenever they think of me.
Well, shit, I'm honored that you would come on the Goonery.
Hey, man, again, just look at these opportunities. We're getting to connect and meet new people, and why not? Zoom it up.
Right. I was Zooming before Zoom was a thing too, but no, I'm not trying to take any credit for that.
No. You can say you were Zooming before it was cool.
Everyone's like, oh, let's just use Zoom. I was like, wait, this is exactly what I've been doing for the last 2 years.
Cool.
But anyway, so when is this going to air is the first question?
I don't know. They don't tell me these things. But I like I said, I assume it will be this week. But the great thing about the sketches on Conan is they always put them online. So if anybody follows me on Twitter, @TartarSauce1, I always post them. So I'll post it. I just promise I'll post it. And again, the other thing is it's also late night comedy. It might not air. Like, who knows? That's happened to me before on sketch.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you've been snubbed before?
Oh, absolutely. I've been in sketches that have been cut. But the great part is I still get paid.
Yeah. Hey, all right. Right. Money number one, right?
I mean, I'm not really, but yes. But not really. But yes.
No, but yes. Yeah.
No, but yes.
Entertaining fans first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you catch the SNL like quarantine edition over the weekend?
I did.
Thoughts?
I thought it was better than I expected it to be, honestly.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I turned it on not knowing what I would be catching around the usual time, and I was like, oh, this is new. They're zooming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
thought they did great. Yeah. I thought they did great for what they had to work with.
I was kind of surprised that like a couple of the critics panned them and stuff, and I was like, here's the thing, everybody. I think the comedy community especially is doing, like, from late night to Saturday Night Live, everybody who's just doing stuff, podcasts, you kind of are just doing the best you can to like keep everybody connected. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about SNL is they do sketch, right? So that means you can do 10 character monologues, and that's a sketch show, right? And that's kind of, they had a few scenes, but Kate McKinnon's Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she could have done that for 2 hours, and I would have been totally satisfied.
Right. Yeah, I caught that one. That was hysterical.
Oh, so good. She's a genius.
Yeah, she's probably the best asset on that show.
We love her.
Love her. Yeah, I saw some of the music videos. Like, those were pretty funny.
Look, I think, it's in Hollywood right now, it's like many industries, it's tough, right? Like, we're just like, sports, we're essentially 100% shut down. So if you can find a way to make a show still, why not? So I applaud them for trying.
It's a good opportunity to plug your podcast, I think.
Oh, I think so. So I have a podcast as well with my best friend of 18 years. It's called Single versus Married. And so we've been doing that since middle of last year. And we met each other doing improv in a tiny little space in Santa Monica 18 years ago. And she is now a model full-time. She does like fit modeling. And so we've been looking to collaborate on something creative. And, we're both big fans of the podcast space. And, so we really racked our brains, and she went through some life things that, now she's single. And so we came up with this topic, and we've had a lot of fun doing it. And as you might attest to, like interviewing people is kind of an amazing thing, right? Like you never sit down with your friends for an hour and just like ask them questions. It's really amazing.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. So we're doing, Single versus Married. We dropped an episode today about being a breadwinner in a relationship, and it's pretty great.
What are some of the topics?
So the whole premise is that we look at relationship, love, life topics from a single perspective and a married perspective. She's single, I'm married. And, there's just all sorts of things we talk about. We talked about online dating. We did an episode about how to get out of an abusive relationship. So it sort of runs a gamut. They're mostly funny. Obviously, it's funny. But, the latest episode is about being a breadwinner and our friend who is a lady breadwinner and all the stigma that comes with that. And why is there stigma, right? Like, shouldn't we all, it's funny, like her husband said, other guys will be like, oh, I love it. My wife is funny. She's pretty. But as soon as you say and makes more money than me, it's like, like there's this weird thing that we all feel like we're very progressive and
right.
But we're not. Because like, that's a thing.
I saw a hilarious stand-up bit recently on Netflix. It was a gal. Can't think of her name. I'm gonna have to look it up while I talk to you. She had a joke. It was like, because she's obviously got a very successful career ahead of her, and currently she's like, I want to find someone that that'll end up being a stay-at-home dad, but like that's not their goal to be a stay-at-home dad.
Fair. I mean, agreed.
Yeah. Like, shoot,
funny.
I want to.
Maybe it's like Whitney Cummings or Eliza, Nikki Glazer.
No, it wasn't.
That's
she
funny.
Was like a skinny white girl.
I mean,
doesn't
narrow.
That's everybody. Yeah.
Present company included.
Okay. Well,
that's funny.
I'm sure people know what I'm talking about.
They can look it up. It's a good joke. I'll say that. Sounds like a good joke.
Yeah, it was a good joke.
My light is changing in this room, so it looks like I'm being burned.
I see that. My lighting crew fucked up the lighting right now, so I've got like super shadow over my face and not happy about it.
Can't find good help. Can't find good help these days.
I know.
Especially when there's nobody in your house except really just you and maybe one other person.
I'm looking at myself, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. How are you doing in quarantine?
Oh, just fine. We got the podcasting thing going on.
Okay,
and
good.
I'm able to work from home.
Great.
During my normal day job. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're living the dream is what you're telling me.
I mean, it's kind of feeling like that. Except for the anxiety and the background that seems like one question, you were talking about your podcast, some of the topics, you're kind of going quickly. I was just curious, what there's got to be a line drawn in the sand somewhere in an abusive relationship where it like crosses that line. I'm just curious what your guys' take is on that.
Yeah. So we actually had a clinical therapist on to talk about.
Oh shit. Okay.
It. Yeah. It's
is
a friend.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but is it like a serious podcast or is it comedy or kind of a mix?
It's a mix. It's a like I would say it's 90% comedy, 10% like, information. But this was a particular podcast. So Tina Louise, the other my co-host, she was in a 10-year relationship, was engaged, and realized after getting in a car accident on the 10 freeway and totaling her car, the recovery, she realized that her fiance was potentially was not a great guy, right? Not a great guy. She would find herself locking herself in the bathroom for a long time just because it was the only like safe space that he wasn't around. So it's that fine line between, there's so many people in tough relationships. And right now, even in this pandemic, I hate to say it, but like a lot of these problems are coming to a head. And I just feel for people who are in these situations. And that doesn't matter. I'm not a therapist. I am not a licensed anything. But all I can say is you're not alone. You can get out, and there are people everywhere that are ready to help you do it. You have to find the people in your life that are your friends. You have to confide in them, and everybody wants you to be safe and get out. And this is like, my best friend was not physically, there's no physical abuse whatsoever, but it was like the total chipping away at your psyche to make you believe that like, you're not good enough. You'll never find anything else. Like, this is it. This is your life. And so, that was like our third episode. So if anybody wants to download it, the doctor gives much better advice than I do on how to get out. But the answer is get out. And,
Run.
you are the most important thing, in your life. So everybody is worth it. And don't be a dick. Don't be a dick and be an abuser. How about that? Don't abuse people. Don't be a gaslighting narcissist. I mean, it's hard when we're led by one, but, it is what it is.
I know. Okay, so what's the muse behind your podcast, your comedy, this lifestyle?
You mean like what was our inspiration for it?
Yeah, or like how did you get into comedy?
Oh, how did I get into comedy?
Yeah.
I mean, interesting question. I think me, like many comedians, didn't have like, a super great growing up experience. I moved around a lot because my mom was kind of crazy and my dad kept switching jobs. So I moved 16 times before we were in high school, and I went to 9 different schools. So I had to learn to adapt pretty quickly, like no matter where we were. And I figured out pretty quickly that I was kind of funny. And so that's sort of like what you grab onto. And I think that was really because the only thing at home that we really like did as a family was like watch like funny movies and TV. Like it's going to say a lot about me, but like when I was like 8 years old, one of my favorite movies was like Caddyshack.
Hysterical movie.
So, that was sort of like the world, like my parents, my mom and dad, like the one thing we could all do together was laugh and like look at things. So I think I was probably just like, yeah, I could do, that's what I want to do. And that is like Saturday Night Live, as soon as I was like allowed to watch it, which I was probably way too young to be watching any of those shows. And In Living Color was,
someone turned me on to that. That's so funny.
I wanted to be Jim Carrey. I kind of still do. And, that's...
And now I'm going to Get You, Sucker. Have you seen that movie?
Oh, of course. Damon Wayans. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All those movies are amazing. So I think I've always known that I wanted to do comedy. It wasn't until I was much, much older that I really knew what improv was. I wasn't exposed to it. I grew up in Reno and Las Vegas, and like that, it's not like a hotbed of comedy for people under 21, right? Like we didn't have anything. So it was like, as I got into college and out of college, and I was like, oh, this is how, people can do this professionally, like, and not just be a famous person. Like you can do it and become a famous person or not. So I think I've always sort of been funny, whether by choice or by chance, but here we are today, doing great, drinking during a pandemic with sun in my eyeballs.
I know, everyone's alcohol consumption way up.
Way up.
Way up. Domestic violence, way up.
I mean, that's not the part I want to be way up, but I mean, I think a drink is great.
Yeah, drink here.
That's my message. That's my message.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any other messages? Or is that your sole message?
I mean, don't be a dick, I think, again, is my big message for this pandemic. Like, don't go to the grocery store without a mask on. Like, don't do it. Just put a mask on. Just put a mask on when you go to the grocery store. It's not a big deal. You're there for 30 minutes.
I gotta throw this little bit out here. It's not very funny. It's just.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't want to hear it.
It's a little more serious. So, in a previous podcast, I had brought this up. but yeah, before we were like all sent home at work, we're all kind of close by each other. There was a Asian guy who was wearing a mask before, like, when we were all told like wearing a mask does nothing unless you're sick type of thing.
Sure.
So, and I was like, and we worked together. So I was like, why you got the mask on? He's like, oh, I'm good. Like, I just trying to be preventative or whatever. I was like, okay. And he's like, because his family's in China, and he's like, yeah, the Chinese government strongly recommends wearing a mask. And I was like, that's really interesting. Our government's saying the complete opposite.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
And now we're all recommended to wear masks. So it's kind of interesting. Like,
so are you guys all gonna get that guy a beer? Like, hey, sorry, we were
probably
like,
I feel like
being American dicks.
Yeah, I feel like I was coming across as a dick when not really trying to, but no. I learned. We're all just chatting. I just think it's interesting that, like, there's two different countries, same planet, two different opinions on something, and it can change just like that, and we're kind of all at the mercy of. So, there's some stuff we like to question on the Goonery.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's an interesting point to bring up because, especially, I mean, LA is a big, diverse population, as is Seattle, as is a lot of places, and the pushback and not helping coming from your commander-in-chief who's calling it the Chinese virus. It's like, I think what this is really, I hope, sending a message to all of us is that we are far more connected than we all realize. And thinking that, something like wearing a mask, which is very common in most Asian countries, because also the air quality there is not great because there's tons of people there. So it's not weird for them. And for us to like take the idea that we're so much better here, that we don't have those problems when we absolutely do. It's an interesting thing to watch from like a, backseat perspective of people's reactions. Because for me, I was like, it wasn't even a second thought. I was like, give me a mask, let's go, no problems. And, I think there's going to be big pushback as we continue on this when they're like, as I feel like my guesstimation is when the social like when we're allowed to go back outside, and even especially like I bet in my line of work, people on set are probably going to have to wear masks. Like I think that's probably going to be a thing for a while. And you know what? Let me tell you, set is disgusting. People on set are gross. Like that's just a rule. And I'm not against this. Just like it's kind of fine with me. Kind of fine with it. I feel like we could have done this earlier. It's kind of great. But yeah, I think we should all look at ourselves and just ask the questions like, why did we make such a big deal out of having to wear a mask? It's really not a big deal.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a personal freedom type of thing, or
sure,
an arrogance type of thing.
Yeah, these are all fine. Listen, everybody has the right to get sick if they want, right? So then, great. But I also have the right to tell you to lock yourself in your house if you want to get sick, because I don't want to be around you, right? Like it's like that whole, we all have to navigate this world now. And I think as Americans, obviously, we're not used to having rules like that. And we think we could do whatever we want, whenever we want. And it's like, yeah, maybe a mask is the first step to also going, you know what we also don't need? We also don't need to all drive like Lincoln Navigators if we have one child. Like, that's terrible, right? Like, how would we survive if I can't drive my one child to school every day in a 12-passenger vehicle? Like, I don't know. But maybe it's just like easing the way into, look at all the good things happening on the planet, right, that we're seeing. Like, all these animals that are out. The pollution's going down. I was like, these are also good side effects. And, like, what can we do to maybe hold on to some of the good side effects?
From just being locked up inside?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a meme. It was like, coronavirus has done more for this planet than Greta Thunberg changed my mind.
You know what? Let's give this conspiracy theorist something. What if Greta Thunberg invented COVID just to make this happen? Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I don't have special effects yet, but
you should
see my head explode. Whoa.
And I would tell her, good job. Good work.
I saw another good take too about obviously, can't think of it on the spot now. So I'm gonna skip that. We're gonna
It's a perfect transition.
And now that it's awkward too, I'm gonna grab another beer and we'll do a little brief intermission if you need to grab another drink too.
Fantastic.
Or
it's
just want to rant for a minute. It'll just take me a second.
I don't want to rant. I might try to change this drape though, because it's now bothering me.
All right, quick.
Hey, Mama. Oh, the drape is so much better now.
All right, well, cheers. Oh, okay, I remembered the take, like I always do. It was like, we're going to watch all these movies now from, before COVID. Be people like hugging each other, getting all touchy, and we're going to be like, whoa, kind of have that like reaction to...
Did you have? I actually have. There's been a couple scenes where I'm like, oh, you're not allowed to do that. I was like,
yeah,
oh, that's weird.
Can't do that anymore.
We were watching Ozark, and there's like that scene of like the big fundraiser, and I was like, oh, they shouldn't do. I guess they're allowed to do that. That's fine. That was fine then.
The season 3 Ozark.
Yeah, are you caught up?
I am, and spoiler alert, everyone, because we're gonna tangent into a little Ozark conversation.
Maybe, yeah.
What's your take on Ozark?
I love that show. I think it's fantastic. I think it's incredibly well acted. Somebody said, so I don't take this totally as my own, but that the thing about that show is, they get into this impossible situation like every show, and there's like a 0.01% chance that they could get out of it, and every time they get out of it. So it is like that point of like, as a writer, I think the writers, the anxiety that ripples through that show is probably just from the writer's room going, how are we going to fix this? I don't know what to do. So I think like I like watching it from like that going, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't have to solve that problem. But
Smooth talking Marty. Gets out everything.
I do. I mean, they have done the most heinous things you can imagine. I was like, it's season 4. I don't like, are they just going to cut off each other's limbs one by one? Like, what's left?
Yeah. Season 3, I got to be honest, didn't really do it for me. I was like real pumped.
Yeah.
Season 1, 2, agree, where's this going? That type of shit. Season 3 felt a little like, I don't know. When like shows kind of, they just like add filler to like keep it going, but it doesn't really get anywhere or accomplish anything.
I do know that. And I think it results from 2 things. One is like that their story is already so complex. Like they have a very complex story, a very complex cast of characters, the highest stakes in not just every like episode, but every scene. And so you get to that point, I think, as writers and the storytellers and going like, how do you keep one-upping? Like, how do you keep upping this? Mm-hmm. But also you get like the popularity boost where you're like, oh, people love it. Like, let's give them something. So I think it's a combination of both. I enjoyed it, but I did feel like there was a little bit of pushing where I was like, okay, this is a little insane.
Marty down in Mexico for a few days, like, ooh.
I was like, okay. Yeah, I mean, Laura Linney, like, spoiler, everybody, kills her brother. She essentially kills her brother. So, like,
the whole brother, like, being brought into it just to fuck shit up and then get off. It was a lot.
It's a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway,
okay, so I want to be like getting some information out of you.
Sure.
Not fully sure exactly what, even though I've had like a week to prepare for this. But just mostly about being in the comedy industry. Whether you're producing or working on skits or doing stand-up, just kind of learning more about like what goes into all that. A very broad question, so
very broad. I mean, the broadest, but yeah.
I'll let you maybe just talk about something that comes to mind, and then.
I mean, I think it depends on what, like, here's what I'll say, like, broad strokes. Comedy now is so much more accessible. You don't have to live in LA and New York. You don't have to live in a major city. You can be funny anywhere, and you can get your content out immediately, right? Like, that was not accessible when I started. That wasn't even remotely accessible. That was really not accessible until like really, really like 5-10 years ago. And so that what that means,
honestly, I feel like 2015, 16 was kind of that like threshold where
right,
we all kind of got caught up to speed with our capabilities.
Yeah, and I think I was always making my own projects from the get, but to get them out quickly and a high quality where you actually can't tell with a lot of people's stuff, like, was that shot professionally or was it shot on an iPhone? Like, it's amazing what you can do. So I think, there's a call, especially in Hollywood. We want more content. And now there's so many more outlets with all the streaming. But, at the end of
there's so much content out there.
There's so much content. But what are even the things that we're talking about is like the shows that we like and the shows that like, gravitate to the top. Well, they have great PR behind them. But what a lot of them have too is personal stories that all resonate.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So
that makes sense.
I think, if anybody out there that's watching or listening or whatever, everybody has
strike a chord.
Everybody has a everybody has a personal story to tell, right? Whether it's funny or not. If you want to be funny, it is not, you can't just show up and like be funny, right? It is a grind. It is work. You have to train. You have to like commit to it. And I think it's hard because it looks like it's so easy for everybody, right? It looks like, Jerry Seinfeld or Aziz or anybody walks on stage and does their 1-hour Netflix special. So much work goes into that.
Okay, so thank you for helping me guide this conversation to where I was trying to get it to go.
You can think Truly.
Okay, I can think Truly.
Sponsored.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Let's just mention some product and hopefully it'll catch on. Yeah, but like writing a joke, right? I always hear comedians talk about how much work goes into the joke and cutting out all the fat, and then performing the joke, and then still like never really truly being satisfied with it.
Yeah, I mean, like I think there's a level, there's what happened, obviously is you write a joke or you do a joke on stage and I was like, that's the best fucking joke I've ever written. And then you're like, yes, that's amazing. And you do it another audience and there's crickets and you're like, cool. No, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think, you have to be very confident. If it doesn't make you laugh, it's not going to make other people laugh. But there's also a double-edged sword there. Just because it makes you laugh doesn't mean it's going to make other people laugh. There's so much help now, like joke books, like mentors, online classes. There's open mics like in almost every city. Like there's, comedy is very low. Like stand-up comedy is very lonely existence generally, right? Because you're alone at home writing jokes, and then you go out and you're on stage alone, and like you're in a crowd, but really it's up to you to like provide your own material. But I'm telling you, there's plenty of people that I've heard a lot that the LA stand-up community is very like we all help each other, right? We're like, hey, you got a show, I'll be on your show, come on my show, like it's that way. But I've heard New York is not like that.
Yeah.
I have not done any stand-up in New York, so I don't know. It sounds terrifying. But one day I'm sure I'll get there. But, it's at least here it feels like, no matter what, it's a grind and it's work, and you have to put the work in, and you have to have some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not like a process, but you have to have like a way you work, right? If you're going to sit down every morning for an hour and write jokes, you should do that. If you're going to just do it on the weekends, then you should do that. But whatever it is, you should stick to it. Because if you don't stick to it, it's just like any other muscle. It goes away. It gets atrophied. And, I mostly have done improv and sketch. And, so for me, I feel like a newbie at stand-up, but I've been doing stand-up for like 5 years. So it's it's interesting.
One of the questions about stand-up, we can't gather publicly for at least another month, if not probably longer, which means no stand-up. Are we able to do like an online virtual like comedy club stand-up, or is that not possible?
I mean, I know tons of people that are doing it already. Like it's happening. I've seen a few of the shows, and it's here's the thing. I'm glad we're all doing it, right? Because you still want like the interaction, and you want to keep fresh, and you want to tell your jokes. Is it the same as being in a room? Like, no. And we do every Saturday night, my second city improv group, we're Brother Bradley, and we're doing online improv. And that is a big transition. And, listen, we're like everybody else. We're trying it. Why not? If it all makes us still feel like we're connected, and we're still working out our muscles and working out our funny, and, honestly, like having an outlet to try to not be sad for 30 minutes, like, let's do it. But yeah, a lot of people I know are doing online open mics and online stand-up shows to raise money and all that. So they're happening. They're out there. And if you want to find them, I think you can just Google it. Like, literally, there's a lot of people doing it. I know Second City is doing a lot of big public shows for like their main stage Chicago people. And I watched one of those shows, and it was really funny and really successful. So, people are doing it.
Okay. Yeah, people are doing it. Just, I didn't know, how kosher it was to try to perform like a virtual stand-up when, its truest form is in a room with people and not captured online or recorded. I mean, unless it's a Netflix special.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody's like watching any of the late night shows, all these guys are doing it in their houses.
Right.
And it's I'm still enjoying it. But maybe that's just me as like a person who's like a comedy nerd. But I watched John Oliver, and I was like, I think he's brilliant. I kind of think he doesn't even need an audience. Like, I still love it. And, I think I've been doing a really dumb series on my Instagram account where I've been doing jokes while we're reviewing face masks, like face mask treatments. Like, so we're all losing our minds together is what I'll say.
Okay. That's true. Okay, so I just lost my train of thought on one other thing, but I had another thing prepared. Tara June O'Brien.
That's right.
Yeah. And you were talking about Conan O'Brien earlier, and I was like, wait, there's no relation, or is there relation?
We are no related. Not related. Like, listen, Hollywood is 100% nepotistic. Nepotistic. I would give my left leg to be related to Conan. We are not related. No, we are not. There is no famous O'Brien that I am related to. There's no famous anybody that I'm related to. So there we are. It's funny, you're not the first person to ask me that. And I remember when the first time I did that show, I think it was 2015 or 2016. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh yeah, O'Brien. And then somebody, the first thing somebody asked me, I think what I've done is like, is he your uncle? I was like, wait, do people think that he's my uncle? Like, no, we're not related.
Oh man. Okay. How much longer do you have to record? Do you have 10, 20 minutes left, or?
I do. That's fine. Okay. Yeah. That's all good.
Okay. Yeah. Let me run to the restroom real quick.
Go for it.
These beers went right through me. Normally they don't.
Do what you need to do.
Yeah, I'll be right back, but I'll come with some questions.
Great.
All right. Forgot to mute it, so hopefully no one heard that. But anyway, so one of the things I wanted to talk about was with comedy. It feels like it's kind of in this weird place where people are, with this outrage culture, like people are getting more and more offended, and comedy is kind of in this weird spot where it's like it's just intended to be an escape and like help people laugh. And if you're offended by it, like, you know, you shouldn't really express that unless it's like truly something offensive type of thing. I'm just curious from an actual comedian's take, like what your thought is on that.
You know, it's funny. We were watching the Dave Chappelle, Mark Twain thing on Netflix last night. Did you watch that?
I've seen that. Yeah. And
you know, Dave, I feel like Dave said it he said it the best. Here's the thing. Like I said earlier, comedy is so much more accessible now. There's so many more people that finally are getting, you know, a spotlight, like diverse comedians. There's a much better perspective for everybody. And Dave said, you know what? There's a comedian out there for everybody. And if you don't like a certain comedian, the great news is there's somebody else you might. So, you know, the idea of the cancel culture and all this is unfortunate and it's hard. But I also think, you know, on the other flip side of that is like Me Too. And, you know, as a woman in comedy, let me tell you, I stopped doing stand-up for 2 years, a number of years ago, because I did not feel comfortable and I did not feel welcome. And it was like, for me, I was like, you know what, why am I doing this? This community is very opposite of like the sketch and improv community, which is very inclusive, which is very like, there's nobody who's like, you know, as a woman who's funny, I got a lot of pushback from a lot of stand-up comedians who'd been doing it a long, long time and had not yet, you know, they were not successful. So it was, I felt the opposite side of what a lot of women feel in comedy, which is not welcome, not wanted. And I feel like, I hope that's very different now. It feels very different now to me. But the answer is, these people getting worked up about a comic's joke or something like that, there's so many other things to focus your energy on, right? Comedians are here to hold up a mirror and say, isn't this crazy, right? We're like, that's pretty nuts, right? And let me tell you how I feel about it, and maybe you'll feel the same way. And if you don't feel the same way, that's not my problem. It's just not.
That's a great take.
It's just not. So, you know, listen, I know Louis C.K. dropped his new thing. I will never rent it, and I'm not interested in renting it, but I bet there are people who are. So, good for Louis.
I didn't know you were offended by the recent Louis.
I'm just saying, like, generally, like, for me, you know, like, somebody did say, like, oh, is Louis C.K. is like, is he dead to you? And I was like, you know, he's funny, and I loved his show. And it's hard for me to get behind somebody who I know, again, this is an industry I work in. I could have been in that situation where Louis was like, oh, you're a young female comic. So that could have literally been me. So yeah, I don't feel the need to, you know, he can be forgiven, he can be rehabilitated, and that's great for him. And I hope he does, and he might still be funny. I don't really, again, there's a lot of other comics out there who are also funny and enjoyable.
And don't masturbate in front of girls.
And they don't masturbate in front of other young comics. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple mathematical equation, right? Oh, that's what I was getting to on my other side of it is like, you know, everybody should be able to make the jokes that they want. And you should be able to have the take on it that you want. But at the same time, what I hope all of this Me Too stuff is making some comedians reevaluate why they have the opinions and the take that they do. And that's what I hope. Where like, there's a couple jokes that I look at that I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't talk about that because that's not really, like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, right? Like I do and I don't. Like you always want to punch up and not punch down, right? So I think that's a lot of it too. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like interesting times. And I feel like people's like, you know, evolution through these social matters kind of keeps a lot of these jokes that a little more fresh. like they seem like they're, now you can have a new take on something. There's only a finite amount of problems to joke about, but
I don't think so. I think there's a million. There's
really think
infinite things to joke about. Infinite.
It feels similar to me. Like when I'm watching stand up, it's like, mostly current event stuff that people are joking about, or
sure.
I don't know.
I mean, our current world's pretty wild.
Yeah, it is wild. Let's be real. A lot of Goonery out there.
It's a lot of Goonery.
Yeah, a lot of Goonery. Okay.
Wait, that's a good shout out to yourself. A lot of Goonery.
Way
to bring it back. Bringing it back.
What as we wind down the conversation here, what's the pinnacle moment for you in your comedy career?
A pinnacle moment. Well, I think one of the moments I'm most proud of that I thought like, oh, this could be happening for me. Years ago, in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I don't know. What are we calling the tens? I don't know. The tens, whatever that's stupid. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. I had a 2-girl comedy band called Vomit. True story. So we would, it was the two of us would play guitar. All our songs were the same 2 chords. We were before Garfunkel and Oates. I know Ricky from that. And let's just say, maybe stole our act. Doesn't matter. Anyways, we were doing this act and we performed a couple times and we started getting booked at like all the venues. Like we were booked at the Improv. We were booked at the Ice House. And somebody, like one of these comics told us like, you should go to the Laugh Factory, because the Laugh Factory, like that's to me, I don't care who anybody says, the Laugh Factory is like when you are a good stand-up, like you get to perform at the Laugh Factory, and they pay all their comedians whenever they perform. So we went to audition for the Laugh Factory, and the right person was there, and they were like, you get 3 minutes, and then like come back and give us 5, and you can be as dirty as you want. The first 3 minutes you have to be clean, then you can do whatever you want when you get booked at 5. So we did that. The owner of the Laugh Factory was there, Jamie Masada. And he did literally like the Johnny Carson thing. He's like, come up and talk to me. And I was like, oh my God, right? So we sit down with Jamie. He tells us how brilliant we are, how funny we are. And we became regulars at the Laugh Factory, which was like that was pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. So we only got booked there a couple times because it's still, I mean, once you're a regular there, you also still have to like compete with all the other regulars there to get spots. So anyway, so when we got our first paid gig at the Laugh Factory, I think that's like, to me, is I was like, okay. I'm like, I got paid to do professional, like to do stand up at the Laugh Factory. There you go. Pretty great.
That's awesome.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, being from Chicago, there was a Second City, there was a Laugh Factory, there was an Improv, all that good stuff.
All the big ones.
Are those the big ones, or are there any that we're missing?
I mean, stand-up world is definitely the Improv and Laugh Factory, for my money. Comedy Store as well. But the Comedy Store, I feel like the rooms are different, so you can get booked there's a lot of people that run different nights in the rooms.
I always hear Joe Rogan talking about the Comedy Store. Is that the same one from LA, or is there other comedy stores?
I don't think there are other comedy stores. I think it's just the one on Sunset. It's
the Joe Rogan LA Comedy Store.
Yes. Also haunted. Fun fact. Look that up on your own. Super haunted. 100% saw ghosts there. Super creepy.
You saw a ghost?
Comedy Store is creepy. When you're there late and you're there and you're like going, like when you're on the main stage and they go to the back and it's only like these like little, I think there's a red or a green light that you go back. I was like, this place is haunted. Like it's legendary. Like it's legend. You can look it up. But I was 100%. I was like, oh, there's definitely ghosts here. Like this is scary as shit. But so as far as improv and sketch, the big places are the Groundlings, Second City, and UCB.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's what we got here in LA. We've got tons of it. Tons of comedians, can't swing a dead cat without. You shouldn't swing a dead cat. That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I don't think you should swing a dead cat either.
No.
Did you see Tiger King?
Yes. Obviously.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, because there's literally nothing else to do, A. And B, again, I'm from Nevada, mostly. I know that these people are from Oklahoma and like Florida, but I couldn't get over after watching the first episode how this didn't take place in Reno. Because I was like, I'm 100% sure I've met these people. They were like definitely.
Well, one of the guys did try to move the operation to Vegas. Yeah.
Because that's where this should have happened. Like, yeah. I don't think Nevada allows you to own a tiger, like, legally like that unless you're Siegfried and Roy. So that's why I was like, this is insane. But, I mean, the doppelgangers of every single one of those people lives in Sparks, Nevada. Like, they just do. So anyway, so it was like a little too close to home, let's just say. But wildly enjoyable.
All right, who would you say your top? Maybe let's go top 5 comedians all time on your list.
All time?
Yeah.
This is an impossible. Like stand-ups or like, God, this is an impossible list. I mean, you got to George Carlin, right?
I love George Carlin.
George Carlin is always going to make that list because he is not just funny, he's smart, right? Like he's smart, funny, he can bring it all together. Great joke. I mean, Eddie Murphy. Raw is like one of the best stand-up specials like ever. Richard Pryor, like you're not going to get any better than that. And you know, the terrible thing is I haven't mentioned a single woman yet, but which is also terrible. I'm going to go off this just a little bit, but Lily Tomlin, her one-woman show, Search for Signs of Intelligent Life. I mean, it won all the awards. She's an amazing comedian. Tracy Ullman. Is that 5? That seems like 5. Those seems like pretty tight. That's a tight 5.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome.
There you go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Definitely threw you on the spot right there. So appreciate you just working through it.
You made me think, and I haven't had to think in like a month and a half. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. But we like to drink, not think on the Goonery.
Yeah. Here we are. We're doing it.
Right on. All right. Closing thoughts. Did you discuss everything you wanted to on the Goonery, or is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I mean, I discussed everything in my heart, Adam.
I felt it.
I hope so. Listen, if you have any other questions, otherwise, my God, let's go get drunk on Truly.
Yeah, seriously. Tara Jean O'Brien, everyone. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.